Welcome to Anything New. My name is Pete, and as always, I'm here with Matt.
What's up?
And Opey.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Anything New is a podcast where we talk about anything new we've been using, perusing, or consuming. Episode 2, we got a big show, Final Fantasy XIV talk, Big Ten ACC canceling fall football, and some thrift shop toy grabs. Let's start off with the Big Ten ACC canceling football. Michael, you're a big football guy. This is big news. You're an SEC guy, though.
Absolutely. If you can't tell by the way that I talk, I live in the South, and we pretty much, our second church, or some people's first church, is the church of the SEC football. But that's pretty big news. If you're not living under a rock, and there's not a lot of people that are nowadays as connected as we are, there's a global wide pandemic going around, and there's there's stuff happening, and people are not happy, and people are going crazy, and things are changing. So pretty much you think about this in your daily routine, and if you're a sports fan, other people may be listening to this, may have other things in their life, but when you mess with the routine of something that's going on for over hundreds of years, like playing a football season or playing a basketball season, that's pretty much been a main staple in most people's lives. But they've started canceling a couple of the bigger conferences because of this pandemic. I mean, it's just it's big news. They thought in the beginning that they were going to be able to play. I know some of the professional sports like the NBA and Major League Baseball and the MLS have been able to bubble a lot of their players and keep them out, or try to keep them safe as possible so they can play. But some of the directors, with it being athletic directors or campus presidents, just decided that it's just too much of a liability to.
Well, there's a lot of. The rosters are a lot bigger in college, right, than the NFL.
Yeah, it's an 85 man roster in college. That's how many scholarships you can have. That doesn't count, walk-ons, people that don't travel, practice squad players, things like that. But it's not that. It's just college is so tricky because you can't bubble college students and college players like you can professional players.
They're coming and going from campus, or or from their apartments, and plus they're young kids.
So. Yeah. It's like, I want to say I am a fan of the SEC, and we've self-proclaimed been the best conference for
self-proclaimed
at least 20 plus years. I mean, just look at that. But I'll say self-proclaimed or allegedly, but we like to think that we are the best football conference. But the Big Ten is either top or second, and that conference has the bigger schools like Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State. Those schools are huge schools too, and have rich football tradition as well. And they're not real happy about it. I mean, and you just think about it is if you're a fan of anything, if you're a fan of video games, if you're a fan of football, if you're a fan of, concerts or music, I mean, this has affected everyone, and you don't know it's going to hit home until they cancel something that you've, been accustomed to having all the time.
Dragon Con. We've been to Dragon Con 10 years in a row. This will be our first year in 10 years we don't go because they canceled it.
Yep.
What are people saying about Dragon Con, like on social media? Is everybody kind of like, yeah, well, it needed to be done, or is people?
I think pretty much everybody's in favor of it. There was a lot of people that weren't going to go anyway if it hadn't been canceled, myself being one of them. So I mean, it's everybody. I mean, you got to think it's 90,000 people crammed together for 5 days in shoulder to shoulder. So that definitely wouldn't have been that. I mean, you talk about hotspot, that would have been another outbreak right there. So it's
Well, one
I
of
think
you guys would always come back with con crud before
Yes,
anyway, so it would have
that's
been
what I
like
was going to
COVID
say.
con crud.
Forget COVID. I mean, there's a thing called con crud for a reason. People always get sick. I mean,
yeah.
when they
Yeah.
go there. I mean, it's just that's just something that happens. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we
but I
we
mean,
oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, yeah, we had one of our crew one year got really bad pneumonia after Dragon Con, and then one other person one other year got some kind of really bad infection that led to Bell's palsy for a few months.
Oh, jeez.
jeez.
So yeah, so it's
I didn't know
already
that was Dragon
unhygienic.
Con, really. Yeah.
Whew, I
Well,
couldn't imagine.
we started this podcast off on a positive note.
Yeah.
So yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to touch on that because it's just it's something that it's going to affect my life being a football fan. I mean,
Sure.
the
But is it though?
SEC
Because well, I mean, how much Big Ten slash ACC do you watch versus SEC?
not a lot, but it's going to be a domino effect that's going to fall. I mean, and it's just a matter of time. I mean, the SEC still has it said, they put out a schedule, but they still haven't said a definite date. Heck, the tricky thing is, and I don't want to get too complicated about it, is like some of these schools are trying to balance, can we play in the spring? Can we go ahead and try to play in the fall? If we push it back in the fall, and we're unsure about it, do you want to get your kids in pads? Like, would you like to go out and practice and go to fall camp in the heat up, for 2 months or for 4 weeks or for 6 weeks and then end up your season getting canceled? So things like that are like what you have to balance as a college administrator. And then plus you've got the financial pressure. I mean, it's just huge. I mean, there was that article we posted in our Discord about the $1 billion loss that some of this industry is going to face because of those two conferences. That's TV revenue money and fans, fan money and gate money, things like that. So it's
all the other sports at those universities that rely on the football money. I'm sure women's volleyball isn't raking in TV money like
no
college football. So like that budget of your sports program department, they're relying on that money. So it's gonna hurt the entire university, and it's rough.
Yep.
I just feel bad for the kids who want to play and can't. I have my own thought.
Sure.
I actually kind of agree with it being canceled without getting too into the weeds of COVID and politics and all that stuff. But I'm in favor of it being canceled because I just think it's too risky to do anything like that. But I do feel bad for the kids who went there to play and want to play
Yeah.
and then can't. I do feel
Yeah.
bad for them.
Yeah. And you can that's something else, and it trickles down from there. You can feel bad for like a lot of kids just in general, all the way from the middle school to high school level. Like, when COVID hit back in March, my son's a soccer player, and we went through 3 years of middle school soccer, and he didn't get to have like an 8th grade night. There was
Yeah.
no soccer season. Once that hit back in March, and the kids didn't get to have prom. So, this is just not just I know we started off with just a Big Ten, ACC subject, but it's just, we can talk on and on and on about the things that's been affected just by this.
It trickles down to like
virus.
seniors not getting to really graduate in the traditional sense, that just all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's a shame.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about something a little bit more positive. Intel's promising to bring a computer graphics card for the PC gamer in 2021. What have you guys read anything on that? It's going to be more for like the PC enthusiast. So ray tracing, all that stuff.
AKA, it will cost you a couple grand
A lot.
on top of top of all your other PC hardware. I don't know.
I mean, it probably will, but you would think that it would bring a little bit more competition and maybe drive prices down from the other two big manufacturers.
Let's hope.
That would be nice, because I mean, it's we all are PC gamers and have been for a long time. Now that I'm a little older, I find myself becoming less patient with PC gaming. I almost just don't even care for it anymore, because I don't enjoy tinkering with drivers and figuring out why my PC blue screens and then feeling stupid when I spend months trying to figure that out and realize it was just a bad stick of RAM. I
Yeah.
just, I don't have the patience for that anymore. I just want to play the games. And that's the way a lot of people feel. And that's the way a lot of people don't feel. So, a lot of people are into that. They want the absolute best that they can get. And for those folks, then I hope this works out for you. It doesn't really blow my skirt up too much because I'm almost over PC gaming completely. Although I did just get a new graphics card a few days ago, but it's like a mid range. It's a 1660 Super, but I hadn't thought about what you said, Pete, about hopefully it'll drive the prices down for the NVIDIAs and the AMDs because those things are, well, that's not fair. I was going to say those things are ridiculously expensive. The best ones are ridiculously expensive. I mean, if I can buy a whole next gen console for less than a 2080,
Yeah.
then why do I want a graphics card? But on the flip side of that, those consoles aren't going to look as good as a PC that you get for several $1,000s, and it's just it's so tricky. It's a slippery slope because it's all about what do you want, how much are you willing to spend, and how good do you want the game to look, I guess, and how much are you willing to spend to get it. So that's where that sweet spot is that you just have to find for yourself. And I'm not really willing to get that much into it on the PC anymore. But I mean, have they announced release dates, specs, anything like that?
No, it's 2021. They did say it would have ray tracing and compete with NVIDIA and ATI. So that's pretty much, they haven't really released too much info about it. I don't know.
I hope that the name is. I hope it's easy to figure out. Like I feel like NVIDIA finally got it right with the names. Like, okay, a 2080 is better than a 2070, which is better than a 2060. I always struggled with graphics cards there for a long time, but hopefully they'll make it easy to figure out which one's which.
When like the next generation comes out though, like like they have like the 1660 Supers, well, but then like the old 1080 would be like just as good as a 1660,
right?
Because that was like their high-end flagship one of the previous generation. So it still does get a little confusing on some of those, but it's interesting because my son, who's 13, he's like, that's all he's into right now is PC gaming, and he's asking me all kinds of questions all the time, like, what speed is my RAM?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, first of all, it doesn't. You're fine. You don't need to. He wants to change out his RAM to a faster megahertz, and I'm like, you don't need that. I'm like, it's not gonna improve your gameplay. You're running fine. You got a 1080 in there, which is way more than you need for Valorant or any of his little games he's playing.
My son's got he's playing he almost exclusively PC, and I'm not really sure why, because his friends play on a variety of different systems. So it's just because that's what that's what we have, and he's got the one that I built that has a 1080, and it more than runs Minecraft and Roblox and Rocket League and Fortnite, which is his 4 games. So.
Ooh, Roblox it just amazes me. Like I have a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old, and my 8-year-old, he plays Roblox just crazily. And I mean, and he'll play these games and he'll be in these lobbies and there'll be just hundreds of people in these lobbies for, user created games that he's playing for free. And it seems like I'll kind of watching him play a game, I'm like, oh wow, that's really creative. That's really cool that they made that. And then like a month later I come back in and it's like just way better than what they made a few months ago, and like they updating it, and just all the user creation is really awesome in Roblox.
Right.
I like to see that.
That's cool. The one question I have, Bo, about the Intel cards is, will I be able to get RGB on my video card?
Well, yeah, because if not, that'll cost you. You get better FPS if you have LEDs on there.
What makes it work, right?
It's proven.
is the RGB. No, just a little input on it took me 15 years to build a new gaming PC, so I won't probably be able to build another one for another 15 years. So
Yeah,
you
yours
guys
needs to
can
last.
you can hand me down all your old, but I'm in the same boat Pete's in. My 14 or soon to be 15-year-old in a couple of months. Yeah, he's all about the PC gaming. He's not really. He's got a birthday in November and Christmas, of course, coming up, and I'm sure he kind of bounces in between kind of what he wants. Whether it be he still plays a lot of FIFA on Xbox One, he still plays some Xbox One games. So, he's got right now an Alienware with a 1070 Ti in it, and yeah, it's starting to peak out. I mean, the only thing about it, and I don't know if Peyton does the same thing, Pete, but it's just like he kind of keeps those frame rates up in the corner, and if it's not, you're just screaming along. There's something wrong,
When I'm on this map, I dip below 60 frames per second.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's
okay, well, I'm sorry. Like,
that happened once, and I need a new, But no, there's a lot of upgrades we could do with with Gavin's machine. He still has a platter hard drive, and
yeah,
I think he's only got 16 gig of RAM in that, and that standard Alienware. So that 1070 will probably last him, but we'll see what happens. I enjoy it. I built my last one. That's what kind of we're all into, and if they, like I said, price, and just supply and demand, that's another thing. So, I hate to go back to pandemic thing, but people have bought up all the gaming systems because of the pandemic, and they'll probably buy up all the video cards and try to PC school starting back up now. All the laptops are gone. I had people hitting me up because I kind of work in IT for a living. You got any laptops? I mean, things like that, because there's a lot of kids that are going to homeschool that, parents didn't really realize that, I've got to have a laptop that my kid can use, to get onto the online network. But anyway, cool. I'm down with it. Bring it on. I'd like to see how it goes.
Let's talk about Final Fantasy 14. You kind of hop back onto that. And
a little bit. Speaking of PC gaming, Final Fantasy XIV, if you don't know, is a MMORPG that was based it's made by Square Enix, and it's based in the Final Fantasy universe. If you've got gamers that are listening to this, you understand Final Fantasies all over the place with their different types of worlds and lore and scenarios. It's as big or bigger than World of Warcraft in some places, and we're huge WoW players. I mean, Matt's played the least out of all of us, but Pete and myself have played probably since launch, and MMORPGs are some of our favorite games. Like, we try pretty much every new one that comes out. But I played a little bit of 14, Final Fantasy 14, a couple of expansions they put out, and it's not for everyone. It's more of a Japanese, anime-ish looking kind of RPG. It's not as cartoony as some people would say WoW is, but they just released a new patch, and I kind of got back into it this past weekend because we're kind of in between expansions with WoW. WoW is kind of our go-to that we play together, and we're kind of at everybody takes the break of WoW when you've played out an expansion and then a new one's being announced, and really there's not a lot of new WoW content because you've done everything, and you're just waiting for that next expansion to hit, so you kind of look for other ways to occupy your, scratch that itch. So my buddy Dan, our buddy Dan, who's also streams a little bit on Twitch, and he's a big Final Fantasy player, he's like, hey, Final Fantasy has a latest patch, and they're like scaling down the XP to level a character. And I was like, oh man, that sounds awesome. He's like, I want to play a level 1. I want to play through the story. Let's get some people together and play through the story, because, a lot of times when someone's been playing something, you want to play with them, you jump in, and then it's just like, you just run through it and don't get a chance to stop and smell the roses just to catch up with your friends so you can play with them. So I was like, oh, that sounds cool. So I agreed to do that. And I was like, wait a minute, that's another subscription to an MMO. I'm already paying for WoW.
Yeah.
But On the contrary, Final Fantasy's got something going on right now where it's free to play, I think, to level 60.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, it's free to play, and it's so we're gonna do that, and they've really scaled down the XP. I started a new character level 1, and I'm at level 20, and I played a little over an hour of game time into it. So just doing the quest lines.
What's their max level right now?
80.
80. So you can play 1 to 60 for free, and then you probably have to pay for
I think
your expansions, probably.
Yeah, I think you have to buy a new expansion, and then the XP boost goes to 70. And then there's an expansion just like WoW from 70 to
That's
80.
cool.
But
Well, what realm are you on? If anyone's listening and they want to kind of join in with you guys, and
well, it's you have to go through two things with Final Fantasy. First, you got to pick your data center. Your data center it's Crystal is the data center we're on, not the drink. Crystal, not the alcohol, but it's Crystal
I'm on
or
the
Crystal.
Cavassier
And I'm
data.
probably butchering this. We asked Dan to listen to our podcast, and he's probably going to critique me on my Final Fantasy terminology here and tell me what I
He's
said was
making notes
wrong.
right now.
He
Oh,
is. And then the server is actually Coral, and I have to look it up how
Stay
to
in the
spell
house,
that.
Coral.
Coral, Courel.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Rick Grimes, Coral. But anyway, it's a pretty popular one. And when I first made the character, I couldn't get on. It wouldn't accept new characters for a couple of days until they kind of opened it back up. So I think a couple of Twitch streamers that Dan follows are on that server. So he wanted to be on that server. So there we go. That's cool. I'm enjoying it so far. I wish you guys would try it out.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about it.
I had played Final Fantasy XIV for a while several years ago, and besides WoW, with the exception of WoW, it's probably the best MMO I've played. WoW was WoW was obviously just the number one MMO. I think most people would agree with that. But second to that is Final Fantasy XIV. I thought I had the best time with that one, other than WoW when I played. I mean, I don't really do MMOs anymore, but Final Fantasy XIV was pretty. I liked it a lot at the time. And
What
if I
did
was
you
still
play?
into MMOs, I played the
Bow, the shooting ranger bow shooting.
oh, you mean
Shut up, bow.
well, players are gonna get mad at me. It's the cat race.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember what the name was. It's been that long since I played. So
Oh yeah. I don't even know that.
so sorry, listeners, if I just don't remember. It's been that long. So, but it was I liked it. It was good. So this would be good for anybody who's wanting to try it. It's free. Give it a shot.
Yeah, it'd be a good time to kind of hop into that. Michael, you had been telling us about you'd stop by your thrift store, one of your getting spots.
Well, as we talked about it last time, I'd like to dabble in the thrift stores and pick up old video games, and I like my action figures too. But I went in this one. It's in the city that I work in. It's not even. I mean, it's considered a thrift store, but it's more of like a hope center. That's what they call it. It's a hope center. So it's more where people can donate, and then people that are less fortunate or need things can go there. They can actually get a meal to eat and also look through their stuff, and the stuff's for sale there. So if you buy that, it goes to further that center for people that that need,
or people looking to expand their collection of toys.
of course. But it's really, it's not like a Goodwill. It's not like any. So it's kind of the Wild West when you go there. But they kind of they put some stuff out there. I've got a couple of games there a couple of times, but it's worth going there once a week just to see if anybody's dropped off anything. But they always have a huge bin of just totes of toys that people have brought that their kids. I mean, if no matter where you live, people have kids, and they usually have toys that you have to get rid of after a while. So
Yeah.
I started digging through these totes, and I started noticing that there's a lot of like big stuff that you just you can just look in it, but I had a couple of totes that had some smaller stuff, and one of the things laying on top was a Gundam, super deformed Gundam. In the middle of Kentucky, the town that I'm at, I found a Gundam toy in a thrift store. How in the world? And not any Gundam. It was a super deformed Gundam, which super deformed in Japan means that they're really small, chunky bodies with like a huge head. And they actually had a cartoon series here for a while about that. But Gundams are mobile suit robots. They're huge in Japan, and we'll get into that on another podcast. But it's an anime series. But anyway, I collect those. Matt and I are huge fans, Gundam fans. Yeah, and I just was like, oh my gosh, there's a GPO2, and I didn't have it, and I have a small collection of these super deformed ones because, like, when my son was little, we would watch the cartoon. Like, I actually got it on DVD, and we would watch it, and I actually ordered some for him on eBay one year, and he had them, and I've kept them. So,
and then your best friend in the whole wide world gave you a bunch of the toys.
Yeah, and that's another thing. So Gundam actually, when Toonami, on the thank you, on the Cartoon Network was huge. There was a lot of Gundam anime that was brought over here, some of the more popular titles, and put on Cartoon Network. And then also in the stores, like in the Walmart, you could go get in Walmart, you could go get action figures, but they were normal size. None of that's around anymore. So just the fact, I said all that to say this toy was out of place. It kind of, caught my eye. I wanted to buy it. I started digging, found a bunch more of Disney Infinities, which I like to collect too, because they're just awesome figures. Never played the game, but I like the awesome look of the figures, especially the Star Wars. I got a bunch of the Star Wars, and I got a bunch of Marvel, especially Hulk. I got 2 Hulks. But the good thing is I was digging through these totes, and I was like, okay, I was thinking to myself, none of this stuff is priced. There's no signs anywhere because of the way this store's kind of set up. So I started like thinking, okay, at least 50 cents a piece for this. So I started making my little pile and kind of thinking, well, I've got a few dollars. How many of these figures? And I kept finding, different figures. And then somebody said, that they'll let you fill up a Walmart bag for $2. Like you take a Walmart bag, you walk up to the counter, ask them for a Walmart bag. They'll let you fill it completely full for $2 of any toys in their toy section. So I filled it full of all the figures that I could find, and I got them back here on this table behind me, which I was really happy with. I mean, there's nothing great. There's some Star Wars, there's some Marvel stuff, there's some action figure stuff, there's some Gundam.
Sure. For that price, I mean,
stuff that I like.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So I brought those home, and don't tell my wife if she's listening that I bring home more trash.
Just put it downstairs. She'll never know.
Well, once we get the podcast Discord set up, you have to, when we talk about things like this or pickups that we've gotten, we'll have to share some images on our Discord and get some user feedback from listeners and see what they're collecting.
And to segue into that, and that was a really good segue, Pete. Like I was going to just do a quick shout out on our podcast to a YouTuber I've been following. His name's Tendo, and his channel is called Tendo Trash, but his real name's Dallas, but he goes by Tendo, like in Nintendo, but it's just Tendo. But this is a guy in Phoenix, Arizona, who's originally from Kentucky. He moved out west, and he lives in Phoenix. And pretty much they have just a huge amount of thrift stores where he lives in Phoenix. So he's pretty much made a living going to Goodwills and Savers and just buying video games. And he does a couple of booths, flea market booths, or antique booths, vendor booths, where he restocks it. And he's into Nerf guns, like flipping Nerf guns. He's into collecting video games right now, pretty hardcore. His girlfriend, her name is Hannah Warrior Princess, because she likes Xena Warrior Princess. But
nice.
It's a pretty cool YouTube channel. But I'm on their Discord, kind of posted some stuff. It's a real friendly community. He's been doing this for about a year, so they're kind of small. His YouTube channel's growing, his Discord's growing. But I just want to give him a shout out because he's got a really great channel. If you like thrifting, if you like he does a really good job with his video editing. He's kind of got a background in video editing, and it's an all around good guy, great channel. And he buys the stuff cheap. Like I literally like to think of video game collecting as just a really small, habit that I have. I like to drop into the Goodwills, on my way home. I don't pay more than $2 a game for everything I've got. If I find something good, I just get lucky, but anything else I just like to pick up because I like to have stuff like that in my collection. So he's kind of the same way. Everything he buys is either came from the Goodwill or came from the Savers or came from a the Goodwill bins is what I've tried to explain to you guys. Some of the bigger cities have a Goodwill bins where all the stuff that doesn't get sold at the regular Goodwill goes to this huge warehouse looking Goodwill where they dump it all in bins and people just fight over it, and it's just, it's Thunderdome in there. And then you pay by the weight. So when you leave, whatever you got,
Like
however,
froyo. You just,
yeah.
the more toppings you put on, the more expensive it is.
That's exactly
awesome.
right. But anyway, I like to give him a shout out. Like I said, it's Tendo on YouTube, and his Twitter, it's Tendo Trash. He has a hashtag Trash Life on Instagram. So anything you post, you hashtag it Trash Life.
In the
And he goes over it on.
in the show notes, you said Shark Tendo, and that's how I found it, was searching Shark Tendo. What's that
Yeah,
about? What's Shark?
it's just that's how he started the channel. Shark. I
Okay.
don't know the background on the Shark name. He has it. I caught him on his newer videos because it came up in my algorithm. I've been watching a lot of thrifting. Of course, I watch a lot of video game collecting and thrifting kind of stuff, retro game stuff. So it came up in my algorithm. Started watching him, liked his videos, subscribed to his channel, went back, and I've started watching all of his older channels, and he has put out a video for every 365 straight videos. He put one out for every
See, that's what I admire, the consistency. I think
absolutely.
that's fantastic.
He does it every day. He does it every day. And what I'm intrigued about is this is almost a timeline of the last year, because he started like he'll tell you in his early videos, he just decided one day he wanted to start. He's a gamer. He's got a Twitch channel. He doesn't really tried to stream a little bit, didn't really take off, or he hadn't put a lot up in a while. But he kind of they started with day jobs, and he started collecting, and then he started the YouTube channel, and it started to grow. And his girlfriend resells vintage plates. She likes the Pyrex stuff. If you guys know anything, my mom's into vintage plates and stuff. She always goes and looks for Pyrex and in old Tupperware, things like that. People love that stuff. It's a whole nother realm of collecting. But I
Sounds fascinating.
yeah, and in the vintage clothes, and I like dabbling in the vintage clothes. Shout out to your boy out there in Arizona as well. What's his name? Slobby Robbie does the vintage stuff. That's a cool channel, cool thing on Netflix. But she does that, so they make a living reselling. Now their newer channels are about getting stuff for their booths, restocking their booths, going on road trips to go to different places. They're full-time thrifters now, but at the beginning of the channel, she was kind of working a full-time job. It was just him buying games every day. So it's worth checking out. It's a cool channel. And there's actually a couple videos where he comes back to Kentucky. He had a booth in Kentucky at one of the malls here. And they're really easy to talk with. I converse with him. I ask him a couple questions on his Discord. It's a really good channel. So I just wanted to give him a shout out.
Yeah, if you, I just found it by searching Tendo, Tendo, just like Nintendo.
Yep.
I just search that on YouTube, and it'll come right up.
Yep.
I just subscribed too, so I've heard you talk about this channel. I've never watched any of them, but I'm gonna have to, because some of these do look cool. And I think the whole thrifting thing is awesome. It's just where I live, you would think there would be more, but there's just nothing here to find where I'm at.
It is. It's absolutely all about where you live. It's like for him, he's able, and he'll explain to you, like he forgets how many Goodwills within his driving distance that he goes to, because he forgets. In the earlier videos, he like, did I put this one on camera? Have you guys been to this one? I'm not sure, but they just go to so many. And where I live, I've got 2 in my town, and then the next one is it's a 30-minute drive to the next one. So I got what I got. I went to mine. I go to mine every day on the way home from work, and I pretty much know if they've ever put anything new out. So it's a whole different realm. If you
see Opie coming in there, like, here comes the redhead. Get out the new stuff. He's gonna want to see it.
There's one guy at my Goodwill that I talk to about every time, and he's into comic books and stuff like that, and we talk about games and things like that. But
nice.
That's cool. But yeah, it's a good channel.
Let's switch gears over to TV and movies. Matt, I know you had checked out something on Netflix this past week.
Yeah, it's a movie I've been waiting for a while. It just hit, I believe, on Friday, so that would have been the 14th. It's called Project Power. Stars Jamie Foxx, fan of his. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, big fan. I'm a big fan of his. I'll watch anything he's in. Yeah, I love him. And then a girl named Dominique Fishback, who actually, I was looking at her IMDb. She has been in quite a few things, but I don't think anything I've seen until this. So she was fantastic as well. So basically, this movie is about. Let me just read the IMDb synopsis just to kind of break that ice there because they say it better than I can. But according to IMDb, it says when a pill that gives its users unpredictable superpowers for 5 minutes hits the streets of New Orleans, a teenage dealer and a local cop must team with an ex-soldier to take down the group responsible for its creation. So that checks all the boxes for me.
Sure.
You know,
Sounds great.
cops and soldiers taking down an organization, and there's superpowers involved, and that's all I needed. But this was pretty good. I didn't much care for it. The first act, I thought it took a while for the story to coalesce and come together, basically. But once everything fell into place around the start of the second act, I found it to be pretty cool. Basically, yeah, it's a drug. It's a new drug that's being sold on the streets of New Orleans. And I won't spoil anything either. So if you haven't seen it, don't worry. But these drugs, these pills, just like I said, it gives people superpowers, and it only lasts for 5 minutes. One thing that I didn't understand at first is that um, it's the super you don't know what superpower you're going to get until you take the pill,
Oh wow.
and everybody's is different. What I didn't quite get at first is that everybody's is different, but it's the same every time you take the pill. So if you have uh, bulletproof skin, you'll have that every time you take the pill. I thought the drug, I
Right.
thought that the pill gave you a different one every time. What's that?
It's like rolling dice every time. Is kind of what you thought at first. Like,
It's what I thought at first. Yeah, I thought it would give you a different one every time, and you never knew. But basically, I guess it's because the way they explain it is everybody's genetic makeup, because of everybody's different genetic makeup combined with this pill, sort of brings it out in them. And also something that's cool that they didn't touch on quite enough, I thought, is that it could kill you. You don't know that, and it did show one person that took the pill and they exploded. So, it's kind of, you definitely are rolling the dice. Then, if you take it once and you get some kind of cool power, then you know you're good from then on.
right.
And they never really touched on if it was addictive. They never really got into the addictive part of it, which I kind of thought would have been cool to sort of touch on. But yeah, I mean, they sort of, I actually kind of thought it would have worked better as a series because there's enough story there that they actually could have put it in like a 10 episode series and really fleshed it out. That was one thing I was disappointed in, is once the story finally came together, I was like, well, wait a minute. I finally get it. Everything's come together. All of our players are in place, and I know what they have to do and why and what their motivation is. But now there's only 45 minutes left in the movie. I want more,
Right.
so, but it's definitely set up good enough for a sequel if they wanted to go that route. I don't know if they will or not. But yeah, it's just it's good. I mean, all the performances are great. Um, I don't know, superpowers. I mean, it's really cool. And they do talk about it as powers. I mean, which is kind of silly, and it is kind of weird how the powers are sort of comic booky, bulletproof skin, super strength.
Any
Uh,
flying?
no flying. No, there was no flying. But there was a sort of, not really invisibility, but almost like a chameleon can blend in. There
Gotcha.
was one guy that had that. There was a Human Torch type power where the guy couldn't fly around and stuff, but he burst into flames, but it didn't kill him. He was able to sort to use it. Comic booky in that regard, but it wasn't hokey. I know comic booky type stuff and superpower type stuff turns a lot of people off, but this was just different. This didn't really feel over the top comic booky. And Casey Neistat was in it for like 5 minutes, which was pretty cool to see. He plays kind of a goon.
YouTube today that he has a new video with Jamie Foxx.
Yeah, that's this.
Okay. So that's the
Yeah.
relation there. Okay.
He was only in it like a total of like 10 minutes maybe, and he was just kind of a street thug he had a gun, and but
Was he wearing his
it's
glasses?
yes, I believe he
His
was.
Ray-Bans?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. At least when he first showed up. But it was interesting. Well, shoot, I can't say too much without revealing it, but it it there I don't know, I'll say it again. There was enough there that they could expand on this if they wanted to, because even though this takes place in New Orleans and it's about a drug running rampant on the street in New Orleans, they certainly, because of what was set up in the story, they don't have to stay confined in New Orleans. So there may have been more there than it was just this one particular story was in New Orleans. But yeah, it was. If you check it out, it's about 2 hours long. I sort of rate movies as, is it worth going to a theater to see? Is it worth paying money to rent? Is it worth watching on Netflix? Or will I get mad that I even wasted my time watching it? And this is definitely, I would have paid to see this in theaters. Like I thought it was that good. So yeah, check it out if you are looking for a fun sort of um suspenseful sort of action movie to watch to waste a couple hours on. This is definitely a good one.
Nice.
Yep, I like it.
I stumbled upon a movie this week that was uh little on the on the odd side. I was a growing up, we talked about before. We're all around the same age, and you have one of those movies growing up that just like really impacts you. And I felt like Boogie Nights was just an incredible movie.
Absolutely.
All my friends loved it. It was one of those just excellent movie. So my wife and I sat down, and she was kind of flipping through channels, and like I don't know if you guys channel surf anymore, but we still do from time to time if nothing's on. And she was flipping through, and this movie had just started, and it was called Heart 8. And I'm like, I've never heard of this movie. So I'm pulling out my phone, kind of looking to see what's going on with this movie, and because it looks pretty good, I'm like, well, that's John C. Riley,
I love John C.
from,
Riley.
from
I do
Boogie
too.
Nights, and he looked young, and I'm like, what is this? Like, when was this movie? And I'm like, okay, I didn't recognize kind of the main actor in it, but I knew I'd seen him in Boogie Nights, but I can't remember his name. He's like one of the older guys, and I'm like, okay, what is this? So I IMDb it, and I'm like, okay, Hard 8, and I was start reading about it, and it's kind of set in Vegas, and I'm like, okay, this looks a little interesting, and I read that it was done right before Boogie Nights, so it's kind of like probably the movie that got Boogie Nights made, by the director and production crew and stuff. So anyway, yeah, John C. Riley, they're in Vegas. He's kind of like this new gambler kind of kid on the scene, and this guy whose character's name is Sydney. I had never heard of this actor before, Philip Baker Hall, but he's in Boogie Nights too. Older guy, and he kind of shows John C. Riley the ropes of Vegas, and then Gwyneth Paltrow's in it. She's kind of like just like a Vegas waitress. She has an interesting character in it, and the Boogie Nights is all about kind of the dialogue, in the story,
Yeah.
like how the actors just in those really long cuts. Like it only took probably like 5 minutes of watching Heart 8 until I started seeing those real long takes
Mm-hmm.
that they did in Boogie Nights, where they would like follow
Yes.
a guy walking through the party, and then he would jump
Yep.
into the pool, and it
Yep.
would follow him through the pool, and then it would come back out the other side, and then
Yep.
back through the party all in one take. Which I just, I love that kind of stuff. Like I pick up on that, and my wife really doesn't. Like she just doesn't have. She's not watching for that kind of stuff. So anyway, it was really cool. Samuel L. Jackson's in it.
Whoa.
Philip Seymour Hoffman,
Whoa.
R.I.P. He's in it, so I thought it was it's not the greatest movie, and it certainly isn't Boogie Nights level, but if you're a Boogie Nights fan, Hard 8, check it out. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I thought Boogie Nights was fantastic, and that that came out right around the time I graduated high school. So still teenager. So you would think, oh, a teenager who watches Boogie Nights is watching it because it's about porn and
Right.
that stuff. But even then, as a 17-year-old kid watching Boogie Nights, I was fascinated with it by the story
Mm-hmm.
and the lives of these people who are in this industry, and not just what they're doing in front of the camera, but what they're doing behind the camera and how their lives change and the situations they get into. And I mean, I was fascinated with that. I mean, because I love knowing behind the scenes stuff of anything. We've talked about it before, like the behind the scenes, the logistics of NFL, or I love behind the scenes of making movies and stuff. And I've always been curious about the adult film industry. Like, what are those actors? What do they do when they're
Yep.
not doing filming a movie? Like, what are their
Yep.
lives like, and that kind of thing. So I
Yep.
love anything that explores behind the scenes of anything else like that. So I thought that was fascinating. But yeah, the director, I haven't seen this yet, but the I watched the trailer and it gave me like a leaving Las Vegas kind of vibe.
Sure.
Maybe just because it was set in Vegas, but yeah, Paul Thomas Anderson. I mean, I'm looking at try to get reminded of some of his movies. Like I said, Boogie Nights, Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love. So yeah, I mean, he definitely has a style that you can recognize if you're looking for it.
Well, Wikipedia says that Heart 8 had a $3 million budget and it grossed 222,000. So the reason why not a lot of people know about it, but just kind of odd. But
and it is included with Amazon Prime Video.
Oh,
so
nice.
if you want to watch it, you can. I'm going to watch it.
That might have been where we kind of caught it. It was just being aired. I don't know if it was like on one of those, like either like an AMC or a Paramount Network, one of those odd cable network, because we had to watch commercials. So, but it was pretty good. Definitely not Boogie Nights. I don't want to pump it up that much, but if you're a fan of that style, then you should check it out. I think
did it have sort of a vibe like the color, or was it Color of Money with Tom Cruise, the pool movie?
Yeah.
With Paul Newman. He's kind of a young gambler, and there's
the savvy vet, brings in like a young guy.
Right.
But then stuff goes haywire, and then it's just how they deal with it. So yeah, it's pretty much like that, probably.
Nice.
I would say so. And Samuel Jackson's great in it. So
he's great in everything. Yeah, so I would watch that for sure.
But yeah, it's definitely something you should check out. Umbrella Academy season 2. You've been motoring through that.
Well, I just started today, and I don't know why I waited until today to start, because it's been out for like a week now.
Yeah.
So I'm probably the last one in the world to have started it, but it is fantastic.
It's better than season 1.
So yeah, I mean, I'm only 2 episodes in, and again, it's been out for a week, but this podcast is about stuff that's new for us, and this is way new to me because I just started a little while ago. Yeah, the first 2 episodes are already better than season 1, and that's no slight on season 1 at all. That just means that's how good season 2 is, and it's really, I don't know if the whole season is going to revolve around this, but the thing I like about it most so far is that this is no spoiler. This happens within the first couple minutes of the first episode. You see that based on the events of at the end of last season, they're all trapped in the 60s, in the early 60s.
Whoa.
And it kind of gives you, it goes back, it puts in front of you that quandary that everybody always thinks about, is like, if you could go back in time and let's say stop the assassination of JFK, would you do it? Should you do it? If you could go back in time and kill Hitler, would you do it? Should you do it? Because obviously, that would, that would be a good thing to do, but what effect would it have?
Right.
Would it ripple through? Although, of course, if you're talking MCU time travel logic, it wouldn't change anything. It would just splinter off into another reality, so you'd be safe.
Yeah, because you could kill Hitler, and then his right-hand man could go make a nuke and blow up New York, But
yeah, exactly. I mean, so, but it doesn't, the Hitler stuff, it's not. But I'm just saying it presents those types of questions and those types of thoughts. Like, would you do something like that? Should you do something like that? And like I said, I don't know if the whole season is kind of hinged around that sort of thinking, but just the first 2 episodes kind of are, and it's fantastic, and that the action's good, and the characters are even better than they were last season. I don't know why I always have a hard time starting shows like this after they've been off for like a year or 2, because it's kind of like, I always think of it as like writing a paper in college. It's real tough to get started, but then once you get started, it just flows like water, So it's always hard for me to fire one of these up, because I know it's like a 10-hour commitment or whatever. But man, I wish I had started earlier, because all I want to do is just stay up all night and watch the rest. But I, obviously I can't because of work. But
What do you think of Ellen Page?
you mean her character or her as
Just
an actress?
her as an actress.
I mean, so she's certainly been in a lot of stuff that I really like. Juno is probably that's probably the first thing that comes to mind because I like that movie so much. Obviously,
I love
Juno.
Juno.
yeah,
Love
Juno's
Juno.
fantastic. Obviously, I think of her. The comic book fan in me thinks of her as Kitty Pryde in the X-Men movies. So yeah, I mean, I like her. I like her just fine.
I feel like recently, just like I don't know. There's just something. This is going to sound really bad. Okay, so I apologize if I'm going to offend anybody. There's something about her face. It's just, don't you think that she just looks smug all the time?
I don't know. Oh, she was in Inception. Holy crap! How do I forget that? Yeah, she was
Yeah.
fantastic in Inception. You know what
Yeah.
I think is like? I think I don't care for her character in this show.
Maybe that's it.
And maybe that's what you're thinking of because her character is kind of
Maybe
kind of
I
like
haven't
that.
seen anything that she was in since I saw season 1. So
Well, her character in this show, she's not very, at least in the first season, I'll say, she wasn't very warm. She wasn't very. I didn't find her very warm and inviting, like somebody that I could just sit down and talk to. She was sort of introverted, kind of a little bit standoffish, that
yeah,
kind of thing. So I think maybe you're thinking more of her character
it might be.
in this because I feel the same way. But again, that's her character.
Well,
She's
was
in a movie
great.
called Hard Candy, which you guys need to watch. It's really
Maybe
good.
maybe I do just need to see something with her, with something else, because Juno, she was incredible. She was
Absolutely.
so good in Juno. But I feel like just Umbrella Academy, which I love the show, but yeah, I guess it's her character. It's just I just sometimes just want to say smile, do something.
Well, challenge accepted. I'll have to watch. I'm going to watch the first season this next.
Oh, you
week.
never watched the first season either?
I've never watched the first season. It's in my it's in my queue.
Yeah, it's based on a comic. I think I only ever read the first story arc of the comic, but it's created by Gerard Way of My Chemical Romance.
Oh wow, I didn't realize.
He was the one who created the comic, and which then spawned the show. So it's definitely it is a comic book. It is about a group of young people who have abilities, but it is definitely not your typical super team X-Men type book. They are a group of young people in a school, and they do learn when they were kids, which the show and the comic doesn't really focus on too much, but because it takes place after they were kids when they're young adults. But when they were kids, they kind of were an X-Men type team, and there's flashbacks to that. But as they grew up, they grew apart, and it is definitely not your typical super team. So again, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are turned off by comic book related shows, movies, that kind of stuff. But this is different. This isn't your typical thing. So give it a shot if it sounds interesting. You might be surprised.
You guys got anything else you want to add before we wrap up episode 2?
I was trying to think of anything new that I did this week, but there's nothing new. Just been continuing Ghost of Tsushima, which is it continues to be fantastic. And no, nothing else new for me.
I put it down for a week or so, and because I kind of blaze through Act 1, or is that what they're called, acts or scenes?
Well, Act 1, 2, and 3.
Act 1. So I blazed through Act 1 pretty quick, and then I was like, I don't want to finish it too soon. But then I always do this, like I'll purposely set something down, and then it's like it takes me a little bit of time to get back to it, and I'm like, well, I probably should just continue playing it, because.
I kind of think the same way. Like that's the way I always thought about Breath of the Wild on the Switch. Is like I don't want to rush through this. I want to savor it as long as I can. It's a game that I know is always going to be there. I can keep it in my back pocket. If I ever just have the hankering to play anything, I can come back to that. So I don't want to finish it because then I won't want to come back to it. But then that causes me not to finish the game. So yeah, there's a ton of games like that I've never finished because I always wanted to keep them as options to play, and then I never go back and actually play them. So yeah, I know what you mean. So I've been trying to get better. I still haven't finished Breath of the Wild for that very reason. So I've been trying to be better. You should play it, man. There's tons of stuff to do. Even if you finish the main story, there's all the side quests and exploration. So
I'm in Act 2, and I just got that like really awesome armor, like with the big white Sammy Hagar hair
Yeah.
that I love. So and I'm unlocking so many cool abilities and like the now I can assassinate like multiple people and it does that like real cool slow motion in between.
Yeah.
I'm like whoop-ah, then whoop-ah, whoop-ah. So it's really awesome. So I love it. I'll get back into it but I know it's gonna be so long before the DLC, right? It's probably gonna be like a year or two before we get anything.
I'd
want
say
to
maybe. I was trying to think of how long it took for like Assassin's Creed Origins or Odyssey to come up with some DLC after they came out, and yeah, it was probably a year, maybe.
Yeah.
I just hope that it does have DLC. I mean, this game is
Oh, I'm
ripe
sure it will.
This game is ripe for DLC, so hopefully we'll get some at some point.
Opie,
This weekend, I was gonna say this weekend was another beta for the Avengers on PS4 and Xbox and PC, and I didn't play it at all this weekend. So I'll try next weekend.
Well, there'll be extra stuff for you the next time you play this.
Maybe, hopefully.
Opie, anything you want to add?
Oh, I'm good, guys. I look forward to. I like watching you guys play Ghost of Tsushima, whatever it's
Well,
called.
I'll be streaming it a bunch this week. I'm gonna try to finish the story this week, the main story this week. So you should jump in.
Okay. No, but I'm gonna watch the Umbrella Academy. I've been meaning to. I'd like to talk to you guys about it on the next podcast if we can do that. And I'm sure everybody'd like to know my opinion on it. But other than that, I'm good.
Well, let's share our social media with everybody.
Social media eye.
So what do we have? What's our director of social media?
Our tens of thousands of followers. No, you can catch us or find us on Twitter right now. Just click there, follow us. It's at Anything Newcast. We also have an Instagram, Anything New Podcast. And we have a Gmail if you want to email us anything, ask us any questions or anything that we did. Of course, you can hit us up on Gmail at anythingnewpodcast@gmail.com and look us up on Facebook just by searching Anything New Podcast, and that'll bring you right to us. We've not got a lot of content or hardly any content at all on there. We've just got these put up like last week, so bear with us. We'll be posting out our new episodes where you can find us. And speaking of where you can find us, we're pretty much on every platform now. Correct, Pete?
Yeah, and we'll get our Discord set up, and we're wanting to try and do next week. Maybe give some video game codes away on Steam. We've all collected a few of those over the time, so it's something we could share with the community and just our way of giving back.
Even more than we already are with our award-winning opinions on things.
But we'll wrap it up there. We'll catch you guys next week for episode 3, and just have a good week. We'll catch you later.
See you guys
Later.